Story 1. Propranolol made me not care about anything. It was frightening, so I asked my doctors to stop the medication. One potential side effect was death. Story 2. I am not sure what the technical term for it is, but when I would wave my hand in front of my face or any other moving object, I would see 3 or 4 copies trailing behind it. It usually only happened in the evenings for some reason. Story 3. I took Zoloft and passed out at work. I woke up vomiting into a trash can. I switched to Lexapro and had a fainting spell while driving but managed to pull off the road. I spent the night sweating on my sister's bathroom floor and vomiting. I switched to duloxetine and now I just get very sleepy. Story 4. Not me, but my roommate. He was put on a medication for attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. One of the possible side effects listed was insomnia. That was the biggest understatement of the year. He went more than 60 hours without sleeping. It was terrifying because he stopped talking and barely ate anything. One night I got up to go to the bathroom and saw him standing in the middle of the kitchen, tearing a sandwich into pieces and dropping them on a plate. Then he left the plate on the counter and walked back upstairs to his bedroom. It was like living with a ghost. Story 5. I cannot remember the medication. I think it was an antidepressant that made me yawn constantly, to the point that my jaw became very sore. Story 6. This was not a prescription, but fish oil supplements caused severe diarrhea that felt like they emptied my insides. Story 7. Decades ago, I took a medication for stomach problems. It was new on the market, so my doctor suggested I wait until Friday evening to take it. That way, I would have the weekend to judge side effects. That night, my husband took me out to dinner, and I could not figure out how to use a knife and fork. My poor husband watched me sit there, moving the cutlery around like a Martian trying to imitate human life. Story 8. Jaw clenching from antidepressants contributed to the temporomandibular disorder I was diagnosed with. I have been struggling for a month since stopping the medication, and I still subconsciously clench even when I am awake. Story 9. I was on an antidepressant whose side effect was yawning. Every 4 words I had a massive yawn and often fell asleep at random. I was too sleepy to feel depressed. Laughing out loud. Story 10. I take metoprolol for high blood pressure. Metoprolol can cause vivid dreams and other sleep disturbances as a side effect. It is a lipophilic beta blocker that readily crosses the blood-brain barrier and can affect melatonin production. This can lead to nightmares, hallucinations, and insomnia. I can confirm that my dreams are more vivid, although I have not experienced hallucinations. Story 11. Well, I became dizzy and could barely walk. It seemed normal, but I had been using an eye drop. Story 12. Bupropion caused a manic episode. I was sitting in bed watching television with my boyfriend when I suddenly felt the urge to harm him physically. I said, "I need to be alone right now." He said, "Okay," got up and left, and I sat there in bed trying to figure out my feelings. I cried, fell asleep, and woke up feeling better. I never took it again. I even wrote on the bottle, "Do not take." Story 13. I was prescribed Percocet after surgery and experienced nearly all the side effects. Constipation, nausea, vomiting, headache, dizziness, and insomnia, but no allergic reaction. I stuck it out for a week before switching to acetaminophen. Took almost another week for the effects to go away. I felt bad because the surgeon prescribed a 2-week supply, but my insurance only covered 1 week. So my brother paid out of pocket for 1 week's worth of pills that were thrown away. At least we know I will never be addicted to Percocet. Story 14. Topamax caused me to use random nouns instead of the noun I intended. Adderall gave me restless legs syndrome at night. Ritalin made me very dizzy for about half an hour after the dose wore off. Story 15. Before being prescribed Adderall, they wanted to make sure I wasn't depressed. They put me on a medication that hollowed out my emotions. I felt like a robot. My only thoughts were monitoring my bodily functions and noticing what needed attention. There was no emotion. I no longer cared about my favorite games or favorite foods. Talking to friends was only tolerable for a short time before I needed to sleep. I stopped taking the medication and told my doctor. It was the strangest week of my life. Story 16. It was not a prescription, but I took a whole Mucinex tablet once. It dilated my pupils and I was dizzy for a while. I was once prescribed Vicodin for a sprained foot. It made me nauseous. Story 17. Medications for attention deficit hyperactivity disorder make me too tired to function. So much for being stimulants. Story 18. Sertraline made me feel like I was tripping on acid, but all the bad parts. Story 19. The diagnosis of serotonin syndrome made all the medical students I know very excited. Story 20. Almost all prescription medications give me psychosis, and it is a living hell. I have to be very careful. Story 21. It made my dreams more vivid, and I remember them better. Cymbalta, if anyone is curious. Story 22. My son had non-stop hiccups day and night from dexamethasone. His teachers thought he was faking them until they saw how tired he was from lack of sleep. Story 23. After my heart attack, these symptoms were caused by 3 different medications. The feeling of suffocating or drowning, the feeling of doom and dread, fainting. I had to change insurance at about the same time, so it took a while to get an appointment with a new cardiologist. When I told her about each symptom, she recognized them immediately and changed my medications. Story 24. Risperidone caused me to lactate. I was not pregnant and have never been pregnant. Story 25. Zoloft made me literally unable to cry. It numbed my emotions. I was taking it for anxiety and it did help, but I stopped because I needed to feel again. It also caused my pupils to dilate repeatedly. Story 26. Metamizole caused agranulocytosis. Fortunately, my immune system recovered in the weeks after I stopped taking it. I was in Switzerland at the time where it was not banned. Story 27. Doctor said this cough syrup has codeine in it and should help you rest and get better. I took the medicine. As a child, I literally stayed up for about 20 hours after every dose because I could not stop doing things. I was absolutely hyper. Latuda gave me fibromyalgia symptoms until I stopped taking it. I was stiff and it felt like my joints did not want to move. There have been numerous drugs that caused rare side effects. I cannot even remember half of them. From turning into the Hulk to severe intestinal pain, every new medication I get makes me wonder what side effect it will be this time. Story 28. Sulfasalazine turned my urine orange. The tablets smelled of vinegar whenever I refilled the prescription and opened the container. Story 29. When I took Abilify, it made me drool a lot. Story 30. Fuck Ambien. I got out of bed, turned on my computer, logged into my email and sent nothing. I turned off my alarm, pulled all my clothes out of my drawers, and tossed them on the floor. Then I went downstairs to the kitchen, grabbed a chef's knife, walked into my housemate's bedroom, set the knife on the floor and went back to bed. He did not know about the Ambien yet and was confused to wake up to the knife in his room. Once we figured out what had happened, he thought it was funny. I did not. I flushed those pills immediately. Story 31. My anticonvulsant made me really horny. This was not listed among the possible side effects. Story 32. I was told Busper had no side effects. Suddenly I became so restless that I could not keep my hands still on the steering wheel for longer than a minute, and they felt very heavy. I could not relax at all. Story 33. I took quetiapine, and 5 minutes later I fell asleep with a book in my hand, the lights on, and classical music playing in the background. I thought I had woken up in the 16th century. Story 34. Lamotrigine severely reduced my creativity. I had no ideas and no desire to draw. The worst part is it is the only mood stabilizer that has ever worked for me. Story 35. I experienced an unexpected allergic reaction to penicillin. Story 36. One caused nasal congestion. It was not an allergic reaction. It was a listed side effect, and of course I experienced it. Story 37. Over-the-counter nighttime cough medicine makes my throat feel like it is collapsing. Story 38. I forgot what it was, but it made me feel like bugs were crawling on me. Story 39. Taking a Z-Pack for bronchitis caused urinary retention. Although I needed to urinate, I could not. I had to sit for 20 to 30 minutes before I could release a very small amount. It was unpleasant, but I recovered. Story 40. I am on phentermine to help break through a weight plateau. If you read online about all the side effects, it sounds like you would be crazy to take the drug. I have mellowed out, stopped biting my nails, and I still sleep well. Story 41. I had a blood pressure medication that, according to the literature provided with it, warned not to stop it because you might experience psychoactive effects. No kidding. I thought I was losing my mind when another doctor took me off it. Story 42. Klonopin caused my blood sugar to drop. I passed out at a football game, and emergency medical services said it was too low to read. Story 43. Medication for attention deficit hyperactivity disorder gave me permanent skin picking disorder, dermatillomania. Story 44. Depakote caused me to develop tardive dyskinesia, which made my hands shake so badly that I could not write with a pen or safely hold an open cup of coffee. It was bizarre and upsetting. When I stopped taking it and the tardive dyskinesia went into remission, I spent a long time writing notes by hand and savoring the ability. Story 45. Prednisone made my head sweat. It looked as if I had dunked my head in water, and it happened around the clock. From the neck down I was fine, but my head stayed drenched with sweat until the medication left my system. Story 46. I was once prescribed Wellbutrin and Adderall at the same time. Took one day for me to become suicidal. I can only take one or the other. I took Chantix a while back and experienced every one of the nasty side effects they warned about. My mom bought me a pack of cigarettes and lit one for me. I tossed the medication. Story 47. I was prescribed trazodone, and it caused sudden severe dizziness and increased my resting heart rate from 72 to 140 beats per minute for no apparent reason. I took it for only a week and a half and then stopped. I still occasionally experience an elevated heart rate up to 130 beats per minute, although it happens less often. I reported this to my doctor, and we are awaiting the heart monitor results. I am under 30 years old and otherwise healthy, and I have never had this problem before. Story 48. I have tried every type of antidepressant and had bad reactions to all of them, so my psychiatrist told me to try lavender supplements, which naturally increase serotonin. They also cause frequent burping that smells like potpourri. Story 49. Intravenous ketamine after surgery made me feel like a god, and I was doing laps around the floor with my intravenous pole until the surgeon cut me off. Story 50. I had shaky fine motor control. My hands shook whenever I did anything delicate with my fingers, but not when they were at rest. I had to have my husband button my sweaters, and I stopped painting for a bit. It was fun. Story 51. Victoza lowered my blood sugar, but as a side effect I sometimes had breath that smelled of avocado, which was very annoying. It also made me burp constantly. Story 52. I was prescribed ciprofloxacin after surgery, and it caused insomnia and hallucinations. Felt like a waking nightmare. Story 53. Vibrid. I missed one dose and went straight into withdrawal. I experienced kaleidoscopic dreams whenever I closed my eyes. It sounded interesting, but it was not. I could not fall asleep. The doctor tapered me off it. Seroquel. It caused lactation and common side effects such as weight gain. Geodon. It made me extremely paranoid and triggered severe panic attacks that sent me to the emergency room. I was supposed to be tapered off it, but my doctor told me to stop taking it abruptly. I went through medication withdrawal for a little over 2 weeks and lost about 20 pounds because I could not eat much. None of these medications helped my depression. Story 54. Remeron caused intense lucid dreams. I knew I was dreaming, but they were awful and scary, and I could not wake myself up. It was terrible. Story 55. A near-death side effect from the chemotherapy drug Vectibix caused a massive pulmonary embolism. Story 56. Within 5 minutes of taking Ambien, I would start to hallucinate that I was surrounded by blooming neon flowers. Story 57. A dose of thyroid medication that was too high made my heart race at about 120 beats per minute while I was just sitting, and I could not stay awake. I kept falling asleep in class. Ciprofloxacin gave me intrusive thoughts and images. I almost felt like I was hallucinating. My blood pressure medication gives me vivid, extremely strange dreams. I take it during the day so I can actually sleep. Story 58. Tylenol nighttime formulation made me pace like an angry lion and want to crawl out of my skin. I was just trying to get some sleep while having a bad headache. Story 59. Lisinopril gave me a permanent cough. Lunesta gave me the worst chemical taste in my mouth for 36 hours afterward. Nutrafol turned my urine bright neon yellow and produced a very strong odor. Fluoroquinolones gave me tendon pain. Lexapro made me feel suicidal. Interestingly, Celexa, an earlier related medication, was the best antidepressant I have taken. Metformin caused permanent diarrhea with very little notice. Tirzepatide has drastically worsened my vision and may have caused an early cataract to begin developing in my left eye. All of the above are known possible side effects of those drugs. Nutrafol and tirzepatide are the only two I still take, and the benefits of both outweigh the risks by a large margin. Story 60. Zyprexa made one of my little toes numb. The feeling returned after I stopped taking it. Felt strange and random. Story 61. I experienced double vision followed by a day of blindness from Wellbutrin. It was listed as a 1% side effect, and it is not one I want to experience again. Story 62. I am on venlafaxine, and something nobody told me about this medication is that it has side effects so bad people typically do not stop it or even start it because of them. I once went without it for a bit over a week, and it was an absolute relief. I am stuck on this medication even though it does nothing for me other than make me sick. When I take it, I get sick. When I do not take it, I get sick. I am in a never-ending cycle of sickness with this medication. Story 63. I took a medication that made me scream in my sleep each time. I could not travel for work because I feared that, if I stayed in a hotel, people would think I was being murdered. The medication was an antidepressant. Story 64. Topamax, the brand name for topiramate, caused several notable side effects for me. I took it for migraines, and it was not very effective, but the side effects were notable in their variety and pervasiveness. The major daily side effects were: 1. Hiccups multiple times every day. 2. Regular spells of dizziness that required me to sit down on the floor wherever I was. 3. A persistent inability to recall words that were on the tip of my tongue, a documented side effect of this medication. Altogether, I was quite a mess for a few years. Story 65. I lost my sense of taste for a week or two. It was very unpleasant, and I was relieved when it returned. Story 66. Several medications caused adverse effects. I heard voices, I saw bugs, I experienced dizziness so severe that I rocked while sitting upright. I lost control of my muscles and needed help with everything, and I had intermittent difficulty remembering the names of objects. Story 67. Minocycline made my joints feel better for a week after I took it for a month. Any pressure on my hands and feet felt like pins and needles, the same sensation as when your arm falls asleep and you try to put pressure on it. I couldn't even use a television remote or walk much. My mom still tried to make me go to school while I had that reaction and looked swollen in all the wrong places. Story 68. I sometimes hallucinate that I am answering AskReddit posts. Story 69. Not me, but my wife had the worst case of explosive diarrhea I have ever witnessed, heard about, or read online. I am a very poop-forward kind of guy. I send poop pictures to close friends and family. I laugh at farts, and I have even had pooping contests while hunting and camping. My wife, on the other hand, has always been grossed out by my poop, but in an EW and funny kind of way. I will not share the prescription because it is too identifying, but let us just say the medication made colonoscopy preparation look like a joke. Imagine those baby videos where the diaper blowout goes up the back and down the legs. Now replace that with full-grown adult diarrhea blasting through tight jeans or even into a toilet so forcefully that it displaced the water and black liquid ricocheted onto the underside of the toilet seat. The velocity was unreal. Add the cramps, the balloon knot carpet burn, and the gas pains. I had to be the cleanup crew. I scrubbed the bathroom, the clothes, and even the car. Then I carried her into the shower and washed her myself. These days, when I say, "No, I love you more," she gives me a knowing head nod. Story 70. I consider myself extremely lucky, as I have never had any. I also rarely use medication. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.